and night marketing, and today I have something really awesome for you guys. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to tell you this is going to be the #1 interview of the year. This is live right now, and why I say this because it's an ex-porn marketer. Okay, I know these are whoa, but it really is, and he's made over $275,000 on Flippa, and we're going to actually show you how you can, even if you make a website now, like for example, it could be a product launch, or maybe, for example, it's something that you're doing with a ClickBank store, something like that. If you can drive some extra money there, you can sell it on Flippa and hopefully make $275,000 yourself. I'm telling you, I totally endorse this. So make sure you get a pad of paper, a pen, and start taking massive notes because this is going to be, this works. And I've done this as myself, and I think you're going to love the interview. So welcome to the show, Brad.
Thanks for having me, James.
So, Brad, I'm going to just go straight to the thing. How can people do this themselves?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, anybody can flip a website. I think it's important to understand, first off, that you have to create something that's unique and valuable. You know, really good example today, just went blown away. About a week and a half ago, this guy's web glitter. Did you see that? Going around Facebook? Right, so TechCrunch picked it up, Time Magazine picked it up. I mean, this thing went nuts to the point where when it hit my news feed in Facebook, I clicked on it and the website was like, can't be found. The guy couldn't keep up with the traffic. Which, you know, if you've been in this business long enough, you know there is ways to keep up with the traffic. He was just an amateur, and he probably had it on a baby hatchling account somewhere, you know, or whatever they call those things that are like $5 a month, unlimited bandwidth hosting. Anyway. He ended up doing $20,000 in sales, and all it was give me $10 and I'll send an envelope to people you don't like, and when they open it, glitter will spill out all over the place and it'll be a mess. And it went viral, and now he's got it up on Flippa. I went to put a bid in, and there's 168 other bids pending. The guy's sleeping because he's in Australia. When he wakes up in the morning, he's going to have a frenzy on his hands. I can't wait to see what it ends up selling for. But you know, that's an example of anybody could have come up with this idea. I mean, it's not rocket science. It wasn't it wasn't a super domain that had 4 words in it. You know, anybody could have come up with a better domain name. You know, there's so many things you could have done better, but he did the most important thing. He created something people were willing to talk about, and you know, he obviously had a need, or people wouldn't have been paying him to send glitter to their enemies. So. You know, I think if you want to flip websites, you know, that's a really great example of someone who just came up with a killer idea that didn't require rocket science, product creation, knowledge, SEO, fancy blah blah blah. You know, no acrobatics, no tech skills. The guy's stuffing envelopes. Anybody can stuff envelopes. Anybody can take orders and stuff envelopes. So, I think first of all, start with a product that, you know, or a website that delivers a value of some kind that solves a problem. It doesn't have to be you selling a product, but you got to solve problems and get some kind of traction. Show that, you know, in this guy's example, he did exactly that. He got free viral traffic, generated a certain amount of sales, and then he took it to Flippa because he knows that someone like me will come along and say, okay, he couldn't keep it running, which is a great. Those are the kinds of problems guys like me love. And anybody with money says, you can't scale? Haha, I can scale that. Give it to me. You little boy, you can't handle that. You know, and they'll buy it from him because if you, I mean, any e-commerce marketer in the world can tell you that the best problem to have is I can't keep up with traffic and orders. Oh my God, like those are the best businesses on the planet. But he couldn't keep up with it, and it was, you know, if you don't know how to deal with those growing pains and you don't set up for them in advance, you end up flipping. You end up, you know, just selling it to somebody else. So I think anybody can start, and it's really important to make sure that you have your ducks in a row when you do start, so that you have the right stuff in place, so that even if you don't want to flip in 30 days, like some people, you know, launch a site, flip within 30 to 60 days, and I've done that. But you might want to flip 6 years from now, or sometime in the middle. It's still important to have everything in place early so that when you do go to flip, you have the least amount of friction possible. So for me, the #1 thing, I get a lot of the deals that I do are broker deals. We do a lot of private deals, and I do a lot of deals on Flippa. So for every dollar you see me making on Flippa, I make another dollar doing private deals usually on average. And so there's a lot of people that come to me with websites. Guys like you will come to me and they'll say, "Hey, Brad, I've got this successful product, but I'm a product creator and I moved on to something shinier, and this thing here is just not getting the attention that it deserves, or whatever it might be. So I'll help you to take that to Flippa, and I'll broker the deal for you." And what happens when I do that is I have a short little checklist that I go over with people, and I say, "Hey, okay, so give me access to Google Analytics." And you wouldn't believe how many otherwise really intelligent internet marketers you will say to me, "Google Analytics? No, I don't have that. I didn't do that." So that's the first thing I would put on my list. You're going to launch a website today, put Google Analytics on it today, because you never know when it's going to get covered in TechCrunch or whatever. This guy selling this glitter site didn't have Google Analytics, even though he's got something super popular and he's got some results and people are probably going to buy just based on the media hype. He would get higher numbers if he had verified Google Analytics. It's just a given. If he said he had 2.5 million visitors, that's great that he said that. But if his Google Analytics backed it up, he'd get more bids. So big thing, Google Analytics. Another thing is to make sure that you set the thing up on its own hosting account, on its own, usually on its own dedicated server, or at least on its own cPanel or some type of segregated account. I see a lot of people doing websites where they're like subdomains, and they're installed in such a way where they're dependent on the parent domain that they were put under. I'm not a virtual host guy. I have a lot of my own servers and I do a lot of cloud stuff, but just make sure that it has, even if it's just something as simple as isolating out to its own hosting account or its own cPanel, so that if you want to move it later, it's much easier to get in there, to give someone access to it without them seeing your other stuff. Another big thing is to make sure that you use a platform that will allow you to move. So what a lot of people will do is they'll do direct PayPal buttons. That's not always easy because it's hard to move that sales history anywhere. JVZoo is a good example. Full disclosure, I'm a shareholder in JVZoo, but I one of the things I implemented with them early on was making it easy to move products from one account to the other, because I was doing a lot of flips back then. And so it's set up in such a way where if you have a product in there and you sell it to somebody else, you can contact JVZoo support and say, "Move this product ID from my account to James's account," and all of a sudden you'll see that product and all the customers and all the sales history in your account. ClickBank is another example where you can do that quite easily, whether it's an affiliate account or a merchant account. Someone can just go in and take over that account and change the payout information and all that kind of stuff on the account. You may have to clear that with ClickBank in advance, but it's a pretty simple process. Just make sure that you're on some type of payment platform that makes things easy. And one of the things, something people don't really know a lot about is PayPal rebills, right? If you're doing a rebill type of a product and you're using PayPal Direct, there's no way to move those rebills to another PayPal account. But if you're using JVZoo and you have a rebill system, the new account holder starts to get your rebills.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not tied to your PayPal account, they're tied to the JVZoo product, and when you move the product, any new recurring revenue will instantly go to the new owner's PayPal account once they've verified their account, gone through the connecting the account with JVZoo process. So that's a really big thing, having that, having all these things. Think about, I like to use the term silo. You want to sort of put everything in its own silo for this business, right? Maybe not necessarily its own company, because you're not going to sell the company, you're just going to sell the website and its assets, but definitely its own accounts. In many cases, you want to set up like its own GetResponse account. I always recommend people set up an account under their own affiliate ID, and then that way they can transfer the account to the new owner, and every month they pay, you get a commission, which is kind of nice. But if all my buyers for this product go into an isolated GetResponse account, then that's an asset that I can sell along with the website, and it's one less hassle for the owner to try and figure out, well, how am I going to import all these buyers into another mailing platform or whatever it might be. It's just like turnkey. Here's another thing. And I think it's also important to isolate out any licenses that you purchase. Make sure that all of those assets are in one bucket, whether it's just a simple Evernote file where you have all the PDFs and all the all the invoices and all the license keys and all that kind of stuff to every plugin and everything that you're going to use on that website, because that's all going to get transferred to the new owner. So those are really the, off the top of my head, the most important things to kind of
Mm-hmm.
make sure that whatever it is you're doing, it's set up in such a way where it's really easy to sell it to somebody else. And if it's years down the road or days down the road, obviously the longer that's sitting there and the more history there is, the easier that'll be.
Exactly, Brad, and you go through all that inside the course that you do have, but you also have methods, and this is something that was really caught my eye when I was looking to flip a site really with Brad, is that, and I totally recommend, if you have a site, you have a website, contact him, because he has ways and secrets to squeeze out more percentage or 20-30% more money out of the sale. I mean, can you tell really, I mean, this is the real deal, really.
Well, yeah, I'll never forget my first website flip because I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, the first few that I did, I had no clue what I was doing, and I definitely made financial mistakes. I made crucial mistakes that cost me a lot of money, and then I started to realize the psychology of auctions and the psychology of bidding on auctions and how to, in some cases, get 2 to 3 times as much money for a sale than other people do. In fact, I have. If you look at any of my previous auctions on Flippa, I actually have a group of people who love me and who hate me, and a lot of the people who hate me are other sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually put a disclaimer now in all my auctions that say, please, take the comments with a grain of salt, because a lot of the time it's failed sellers coming in trying to, sabotage my auction because they just can't figure out how I've done what I've done and how I'm getting the money that I'm getting. I have classic haters that come into my auctions and they're like, how is this? There's no way this is worth this much money. And it's like, it's worth whatever someone wants to pay for it. And that's the whole point of an auction. And if you don't agree with the value of it, then this isn't necessarily for you. But what happens is that it gets people so upset because they just sold a site in a similar vertical and they got 20% of what I got for mine. And so a lot of it is just how you position it, how you deal with the bidders when they come in. There's a lot of psychology behind it, and I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a website you're flipping, and in your mind it's going to sell for $20,000, right? But all flip auctions start at $1. You can set a reserve at $20,000 if you want, so that if it doesn't bid up to 20 grand, you can keep it. But if you put no reserve on it, then whatever it sells for, it sells for. So what a lot of new sellers do on Flippa is they'll go in thinking, oh, I'm going to get $20,000 for this website. And someone will contact them and say, hey, I'm interested in bidding on this website. My budget is $2,500. Can you give me some, can you tell me the reserve amount, or can you answer these questions for me? And what a lot of people will do is they'll reply back to that person and say, unfortunately, your budget doesn't meet the reserve. And they won't answer their questions. And because they think to themselves, well, this guy can't afford my website. But what they don't understand is that his action is actually necessary to get you from 2,500 to the next point. And so what I always recommend to people, and this is one of the big things that I do, and I go deep into this stuff in the product, but this is just the easy one. Talk to everyone as if they have $1 million budget, and don't, even if they tell you my budget. I've had guys tell me my budget's this and then spend 10 times that amount of money. So for one, whatever someone says their budget is, just ignore that number and don't treat them any differently whether they say they can only spend $10 on your website. Will you answer these 60 questions for me? Answer their 60 questions. You'd be surprised what happens when you do that. So treat everyone the same. Treat them all like millionaires, because you just never know who you're talking to and how much they have to spend. And in their mind, it might be worth this, but if they see 3 or 4 other people fighting over it, they might change their perception overnight of what it's worth. And you talked down to them when they said their budget was $2,500. You lost them completely. They're now focused on another auction. So bidding psychology it's like, I would say it's the biggest part of Flip Repeat, the product. We go deep into bidding psychology and some stories and some situations that have come up along the way where actually taking a counterintuitive approach and telling people things that might seem like the wrong thing are actually the thing that gets them to bid more. So I think the psychology part of it's the biggest part.
Totally true. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, because my father has been on Flippa before, buying these Flippa auctions a few years back, and you know what? A lot of people didn't understand that he would spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a website, and this is totally true. And so, but a lot of times when they do say whether they're going to spend, they got more money than you think.
Yep.
And a lot of these
Yep.
are actually they're like retirees, so they got huge amount of money. I'm telling you. But one thing about it is that so I know that they should maybe make sure that they get everything ready. But what about somebody that's first starting off and they want to build a website, maybe or ClickBank store? I guess they should somehow get some kind of income, or does that matter, or does that not matter? What do you say?
Traffic or income, or both, preferably. You don't need both. A good example is my wife sold her website, vegancooking.com, and she claimed no revenue at all. She had a little revenue, but it just wasn't enough to even bother claiming. So we just said unmonetized. And she still got a lot of value for it because it was positioned well in Google. It was a great domain. It had a lot of traffic. It had a lot of history. It had been, on the net since the late 90s, and it, had a lot going for it. And it still sold for a really good number. So I think the most important thing is it comes back to what I said earlier, which is create something nobody's created, solve a problem nobody's solved before. I think the biggest mistake people make is they just try and cookie cutter what someone else did, and that doesn't work. The glitter example is a great example. Anybody watching this, I don't care who you are, if you're watching this right now, you could stuff glitter into an envelope in your living room. And it's a ridiculous, I'm not saying that that's the business you should get into, but that's a great example of someone who has I don't know what his skill set is, but anybody could have come up with that idea. Anybody could have gotten that coverage for free that he got. All he had to do was, go and knock on some doors. Just had to sweat a little bit, and now he's got something that's probably going to sell for, I'd say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 100 grand on Flippa, and it probably ended up taking him 30 days of work to do that. Now, of course, that's an extreme example. Of course, he got media attention. He got stuff that average Joe doesn't always get, but average Joe with average product is never going to get anything. So come up with something cool. Come up with something fun and unique and that nobody's ever done before. I think that's what separates the winners from the losers on Flippa. I'll tell you another example with Flippa. If I try and do the same thing 2 or 3 times on Flippa, it doesn't pan out very well. If I try and take a product, infographic templates, the first one sold really well. I'm going to create an infographic templates version 2 and sell that. It sold okay. Version 3, people were like, what? No, this has been done before. So doing something fresh and new is really important with anything you're doing, whether it's trying to get new customers or trying to establish a business that you can flip. But yeah, I don't know about, ClickBank stores and that kind of stuff. I don't know so much. I think if you're going to sell affiliate-based stuff, you need to have some kind of value proposition at the front end. Why am I here? Why do I care to buy this from you? Solve a problem first.
It's totally right. I totally agree. And that's why maybe it might be a good idea to watch what sells on Flippa and try to resurrect that. Maybe as maybe something a little bit different. Of course, you don't want to rip somebody off, but maybe that could be a great, because really, if you look at this, you can create a huge income and a full-time career just doing this. Am I right?
Sure. Yeah. Everyone has a different idea of what huge income means, but
yes.
it's like anything. It's going to be a lot of work. If your whole business is flipping websites, it's work. Thankfully that's not my whole business. It's like a sideline thing that I do. I enjoy the money, and I enjoy doing it. It's actually kind of a fun process for me. So I think if you're watching this, you've got to think of flipping the website as an exit strategy. Who it's great for are people that have more ideas than time. Right? If you have lots of cool ideas for things that you want to do online, and you want to create them, and then you want to move on to the next idea, because that's how a lot of us are. We have entrepreneur ADD, and we're really great at creating products and proving that they sell, getting a small audience to buy them, improving the conversion rate, and then flip it to someone else who's terrible at ideas but wants to scale that business for you and take it to the next level. And then you go back to your awesomeness, which is creating more value, more products, more businesses.
Very cool. And plus, for somebody that's already so busy and they have so many websites out there, can they come to you and and they can strike a little deal and you can do all this work for them?
Yeah, definitely. I love those kinds of deals. Call me.
Exactly. I
I'm on
mean,
Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You can reach out to me if you got a site you want to sell. I broker deals on Flippa all the time. I have a huge list of private buyers on Skype that I ping whenever I've got a new site that before we go to Flippa. But yeah, I've got a good relationship there. The great thing about partnering with someone else, like if you just have one or two sites you want to sell and you don't really want to become awesome at selling stuff on Flippa or become a broker like me or whatever it might be, then you're much better off to just work with someone else who's been there and done that and who has a super seller status and has a good history on Flippa. Because I put up something there. If you're brand new and you put up a website, nobody knows about it. When I go and put in a website, I've got over 1,300 buyers connected to my Flippa account. So the minute I put up a website, they all get an email. And then most of my websites get pushed to the top of the Flippa promotion. So usually they mail it to all 300,000 people on their list or whatever. I can't remember what the number is. Hundreds of thousands of
wow.
people on their list. And I have a group of private buyers that I access. So I bring with me a lot of trust and cachet that you won't get on your own your first sale. That's not to say that you won't get a lot of money for your product if it's awesome, but I tend to just get more because I've been through it, and people are like, oh, I like buying sites from Brad because he supports me afterwards, and I give a lot of after sale stuff to make that worthwhile. But yeah, whether you want to, if you just want to sell a couple sites, deal with someone who it doesn't have to be me. Deal with someone who's got experience there and can broker a site for you. But you can also, if you want to become a broker, definitely look at my course and we've got a lot in there about if you just want to sell a lot of your own sites or you want to broker for other people, how all that works and the sort of behind the scenes nitty gritty stuff that you've got to think about.
Exactly. I just want to leave everybody with this. I trust Brad 100%. I would not. I mean, you can do this on yourself, and you got to grab his course, which is the link right under there, because I'm going to tell you this is like a full-time business, and it's basically going to get. This is something that, if you think that basically education is expensive, try ignorance. Don't have no mess ups really, because that mess up can actually cost you thousands, if not tens of thousands. So what I want you to do next is your next action step is grab the course on the bottom, because this is business where there's even sites that go for $100,000 on there. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. Am I right, Brad?
Oh yeah. We sold a site for just over 70 grand a couple of months ago.
Well, yeah, exactly. And there you go. And after that, if you have a site, contact Brad. I'm going to tell you, you want somebody like that on your side. I mean, of course, there may be other brokers, but they don't know crap. I mean, I'm going to say this for Brad because he ain't going to say it, but they don't know 1/10 of what he knows. I mean, he's basically the main guy there. Even he goes to Flippa and he's like, hey, you know me? Of course they know him. He's the #1 guy there, and he's a super seller. So you know what? What I would do is Facebook him. I mean, he's totally easy to work with. And the next thing you have to do is grab this, because you know what? If you can put out products, or if you want to put out a product sooner or later, you want to grab this so that you'll be totally ready when you do contact Brad, because this is not going to be available forever. Okay, I brought Brad on here to try to give you a sweetheart deal before this thing is going for like $10,000 someday, which is totally worth it if it was. But jump on this. You know what, Brad? I said before that sometimes there's like a devil right here saying, you know what? I don't want it. Whatever. Well, I don't care. Whatever BS they're trying to say. But there's an angel. The angel is always saying, you know what? Don't be a big baby. Jump on this. But what would you also say?
I think if this is for you, if you're already, chances are if you're still here watching this is probably for you. This is a great opportunity. I mean, I'm going to toot my own horn, but as James said, I am a super seller. I have done really well on Flippa, and I have a great reputation there. So, what I did was I created the thing that I wished I had had a couple of years ago when I sort of started out with all of this stuff. And had I had this knowledge, the numbers I pulled out of Flippa would have been much higher than the 275 you're quoting. Could have maybe been another 100 or more on top of that, just from you can do that in anything that you do, whether it's your relationships or your life or your business or whatever it might be. If you could go back to a couple of years ago and teach yourself the stuff that you know now, think about how much further ahead you'd be. That's what I'm giving you if you want to do a flip, is that knowledge that I gained in that time frame of going from zero to super seller, and all the stuff that I learned along the way, the mistakes that I made, and how I corrected them, and how what the results were. That's Pat and I do the whole thing. We go deep into all of that stuff.
Fantastic. I'm going to tell you, and like I said before, I give this 2 thumbs up. It's A+. If you're going to pick out one product that you want to invest in, and of course I always tell you invest in yourself, this is it, because this does work. I've done it myself. And basically, if you create enough of them, really, you know what, it's like it's your Social Security later on. You say, you know what, maybe like Brad said, is that you might do it in 30 days, or you might want to do it in a year or 6 years from now. That's your Social Security. I mean, that's all it is. And he's going to squeeze that extra money out just like a lemon with lemon juice. And he's going to make you real happy. That's all I can tell you. And plus, you don't have to take care of the BS stuff, okay? Because he's going to take care of your he's going to take care of everything basically for you. He's a master. He's a master guru. I know he doesn't like being called a guru, but you know what?
No, I love being called a guru. It's awesome.
Oh, there you are.
I don't mind it at all, actually.
Basically, you are. And you know what? There's nobody else out there that knows any more about Flippa. He's a scientist on this. So if you want the perfect system, this is for you. You know what? I'm going to tell everybody, and I'm going to put this out there. I'm grabbing this myself. Why? Because you know what? When I contact Brad, I want to have all my ducks in a row. I don't want him to all of a sudden say, hey, you know what? You don't have your analytics on. I'm going to feel like a effing idiot. So you know what? I need it. Everyone here needs it. Get it. Don't think about it. Get it. Because if you don't, you're going to be stupid. And then you're going to feel stupid when you contact them later on. All right, thanks a lot, Brad. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, James. Happy to.
Later on.